Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about Scare Me. Before we begin, let me know in the comments if you were looking forward to this or what your thoughts were if you've seen it already, and make sure to give this a thumbs up if you like these reviews. It helps me out immensely if you do that. Also, if you're new here and you like movies, whether it be blockbusters, hidden gems, or everything in between, please consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with reviews of new releases and some classics. But now, let's jump right into it. This horror comedy stars Aya Cash and Josh Ruben as Fanny and Fred, respectively. Fanny's an acclaimed horror writer, while Fred struggles to get a writing career off the ground. They randomly meet while on vacation in the Catskills and hang out in Fred's cabin when a power outage occurs. Looking to pass the time, they tell each other scary stories, some of which manifest themselves in a very real way. This played at Sundance back in January and just dropped on Shudder yesterday. In addition to starring, Josh Ruben is also the writer and director, which is a trait he shares with his character. This is his feature-length debut after having extensively written and directed for both TV and web series, most notably working for College Humor. This movie ended up not being what I expected it to be, and from the way the movie describes itself, you may have the wrong idea about it going in. I actually didn't have really high expectations for it because I was honestly expecting a comedic version of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark from last year, where the stories told literally came to life. And if you read the plot synopsis, you may think that as well. While the stories do come to life, it's actually in the form of sound effects being provided as both Aya Cash and Josh Ruben go back and forth telling their stories. At one point, Josh Ruben tells a story about a werewolf, and you'll hear werewolf sounds, and Aya Cash will imagine seeing a werewolf hand when he hides and sticks only his hand out. If the story involves creepy sounding strings, you'll actually hear creepy sounding strings. For the most part, this essentially just chronicles one night of these two strangers trying to pass time, telling each other stories, with realistic sound effects being added in by the spectator's imagination. At one point, they order a pizza, and they convince the delivery guy, played by Red, to stick around with them, and then it's the three of them just telling stories. It's not a supernatural movie, but actually pretty grounded. So because of that setup, it may come across as pretty low stakes, and because of that, I can see people being turned off by it at first, because when we watch a movie, we want real conflicts with character development and actual emotional stakes. But despite the setup, these aren't one-dimensional characters, and there's a little more to the story. You do get to learn about them through the conversations they have before and during the night, as well as when they draw from real life to tell some of their stories. And the interactions between Fanny and Fred are what drives this movie forward. This rests heavily on the conversations between these two. He's very awkward, he's not all that creative, he tries really hard to impress everyone around him, and on the flip side, she's quick-witted, she's very sarcastic, she can improvise stories on the fly, and her mind's always moving, with her jotting down notes in her notebook constantly. And their conversations are hilarious. She'll push his buttons when he's telling his stories, she'll force him to fill in the blanks or change certain details on the fly, and he struggles to keep up, and then when he tries doing the same thing to her, she'll sometimes shut him down, but she'll approach each conversation with such a quick-witted sense of humor that I was consistently laughing out loud the entire time. Despite being a comedy, there is still this sense of tension slowly being built up, as Fred really tries to tell a compelling story, and he always feels one step behind. He's also clearly insecure, and we do see that insecurity growing as the night goes on. And while their conversations are still very funny, he gets more and more in his head, especially as we can see he's resentful when Fanny does so much better than him with ease, and we're waiting to see if anything comes of it. And both performances are great. Josh Ruben was solid as this dorky guy who's trying way too hard, and he's enjoyable, especially as he tries repackaging lines from some of his favorite movies as his own, which is something of a running gag. But Aya Cash hands down steals the show. Line after line, she always has something witty to say. She has great comebacks, one-liners, sarcastic observations, and she had such fast-paced high energy about her that I could have watched another hour of her character in action. Red was also enjoyable as the delivery guy who turns out to be a big fan of Aya Cash's work, which led to some fun interactions. And the only other sort of major role is a driver of some sort of car service played by Rebecca Drysdale, who brings Josh Ruben up to his cabin, and she's also someone who tries really hard to make conversation with him. And she'll be pretty funny herself, but he'll dismiss her with a lot of one-word answers, or he doesn't even attempt to keep the conversation going, and it's clear he can't even be bothered, which makes it all the more fun when he gets a taste of his own medicine whenever Aya Cash one-ups him. This does take a turn in the third act, and without spoiling anything, this is the most dramatic tonal shift. Because while there's a clear sense of tension, most of the film consists of these fun moments of characters telling each other stories, and it doesn't totally line up in tone with the last 20 minutes. So I can see some people being put off by it a little. Now, I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was well written and really tied everything together to make a great ending. I can just see that shift in tone being a big problem for some people. Overall, this was a nice surprise. It wasn't the movie I was expecting it to be, and it was a lot better because of it. It's a dialogue-heavy film driven by a lot of fun interactions between Aya Cash and Josh Ruben, and they both did great, with Aya Cash especially crushing it. It's a clever, hilarious film that made for one of the most enjoyable movie experiences I've had this year so far. It's on Shudder now, so if you have it, definitely check it out. Scare Me gets an 8.5 out of 10. So let me know, did you see Scare Me, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you find it funny? Did you find it scary at all? And what's the scariest story you've ever heard? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll catch you next time.